We have a vision to be an international university of choice, anchored in Africa, dynamically shaping the future. At UJ, we're committed to creating a teaching and learning environment that will retain and produce visionary, able, innovative people who remain firmly at the center of creating tomorrow.
On behalf of the Council and the Executive Management and UJ staff, it gives me great pleasure to welcome our university graduates and guests to this virtual graduation ceremony. As is the case in many parts of the world, South Africans are currently experiencing elements of a state of national lockdown due to the pandemic. This is without doubt a defining global crisis of our time and the most significant challenge we have faced in a long time. Due to restrictions on public gatherings during COVID-19 pandemic, the university had to postpone its graduations, which would have comprised of more than 60 graduation ceremonies. The qualifications will instead be awarded and conferred to our graduates in absentia by means of this virtual graduation ceremony. Higher education, like many other sectors, is reeling under the impact of the disease. As we all continue to navigate through these unique and evolving challenges, the University of Johannesburg has taken the necessary steps to ensure business continuity. I would like to express my sincere appreciation to all our staff for their support to our students during these challenging times. Due to the commitment from our staff and students, we completed the 2020 year on time and with an improved student success rate. In total, almost 1,300 academic qualifications are awarded and conferred at these virtual graduation ceremonies. This includes more than 10,000 undergraduate diplomas or degrees and almost 2,300 postgraduate degrees, including more than 500 master's and 100 doctoral degrees. Given that a graduation ceremony is such a momentous occasion in a student's life, we hope to have a celebration ceremony for our graduates later in the year. I'm reminded of the words of our former President Nelson Mandela, and I quote, "Our children are the rock on which our future will be built, our greatest asset as a nation. They will be the leaders of our country, the creators of our national wealth, who care and protect our people." Close quote. Graduates, you have been groomed for leadership. You are equipped to join the world of work locally and abroad. You are empowered to be a leader in the fourth industrial revolution, where technology is infused in our workplaces, homes, and all aspects of our lives. The world you are venturing into is abundant with opportunities, but is also beset with challenges. Yet you have the most fantastic opportunity to be the architects and builders of a new world as you embark on your selected career. We know that you will use your successes and your strength to make positive contributions to society as responsible corporate citizens and future leaders. As you glow with justified pride in your successes, bear in mind that you have not walked this journey alone. You have walked with your fellow students, lecturers, tutors, and the firm encouragement and support of family and friends. As you bask in your achievements and move on to the next chapter, we take this moment to thank them for being your walking companions. Graduates, we hope to see you again when furthering with your studies and as active alumni. On behalf of UJ, I would like to congratulate all our graduates. Chancellor, I now request you to confer or award their respective qualifications. I thank you. Ngiyabonga bayadanki.
By virtue of the powers vested in me, I now constitute this meeting as a lawful congregation of the University of Johannesburg. E le ge ke hlompha maatla ao ke filweng go ona, bjale ke thea phuthego ye ya go ba semolao University ya Johannesburg. Krachtens die bevoegdhede aan my toevertrou, verklaar ek nou hierdie vergadering as 'n wettige kongregasie van die Universiteit van Johannesburg. Ngenxa yegunya enginikwe lona, ngimisa lo mhlangano njengokuhlangana okusemthethweni kwenyuvesi yase-Johannesburg. I hereby confirm the conferral or awarding of the qualifications on the candidates as listed in the graduation programs. Executive Dean, please present the faculty and the candidates.
Dear graduates, we in the Faculty of Education are self-critical and reflective, as good educators should be. Therefore, we continuously grapple with the education dilemmas of our world. We ask ourselves how well we contribute through our research and the programs that we offer to deal with these dilemmas. It is sometimes said that universities do not prepare pre-service teachers who are classroom ready. Also, universities must do a better job at preparing teachers to deal with the challenging circumstances in many South African schools. Recently, another matter has been added, namely, how do teacher education and development programs prepare teachers for the fourth industrial revolution and the fast-changing world? And currently, during the time of COVID-19, all of us working in the field of education must come to grips with the consequences of the lessons learned about education in a time of volatility and uncertainty. I agree with Daniel Willingham and Benjamin Riley, who wrote last year about schools and schooling in an article in the Washington Post. They said, if the pandemic has taught us anything, it's that the future is unpredictable. So, we are faced with a dilemma of educating and researching to address immediate education needs and for a fast-changing and unpredictable future. Quite a tall order. Our vantage point is that teacher education and development should be steeped in local challenges and aim to provide teacher candidates and in-service teachers with the tools to deal with the demands of a fast-changing world, which is increasingly driven by technology. The Faculty of Education strives towards dynamic knowledge-making for the 21st century. This implies to us contextually grounded, future-oriented, and globally significant teaching and research. In other words, we strive to do teaching and research that address local education needs and issues. Still, the imperative of global relevance and future orientation also means that our work should be cutting edge and robust. Dear graduates, we trust that this is indeed what you have encountered while studying with us, that you have experienced local and global relevance as well as a future orientation. A few years ago, I had the privilege to attend a presentation of the astronaut Terry Wirtz at an education symposium in Hong Kong. I thoroughly enjoyed his talk. He spoke about his educational journey and his teachers. He noted that whenever he has a chance, he goes back to his teachers to thank them. He said, "When you teach kids, you never know what they will become, but you will have an impact on their lives." This is a powerful message to all of us involved in education. We do have an impact on the lives of those we teach. We need to be conscious of this at all times. Dear graduates, I would have loved to see you in person walking the stage and to rejoice with your loved ones in the audience. Nevertheless, this is still a joyous and momentous occasion. Enjoy it. Celebrate. A warm word of congratulations. Go and positively impact lives.
Mrs. Natasha Becker, Advanced Diploma in Education. Miss Fundega Prunella Betela, Advanced Diploma in Education. Miss Nombulelo Precious Bengu, Advanced Diploma in Education. Mrs. Rieni Magdalena Bird, Advanced Diploma in Education.
With distinction.
Mrs. Sandra Buota, Advanced Diploma in Education. Miss Gabriela Ribeiro Branco, Advanced Diploma in Education. Mrs. Lindsay Burgers, Advanced Diploma in Education.
With distinction.
Miss Jessica Dickerson, Advanced Diploma in Education. Miss Emma Jane Erasmus, Advanced Diploma in Education.
With distinction.
Miss Megan N. Filmer, Advanced Diploma in Education.
With distinction.
Mrs. Judy Foreman, Advanced Diploma in Education. Mrs. Jacqueline Kelly Giles, Advanced Diploma in Education.
With distinction.
Miss Lilibet Janice, Advanced Diploma in Education. Mrs. Kim Lynn Goneo, Advanced Diploma in Education.
With distinction.
Mrs. Susan Jane Gregor Hallen, Advanced Diploma in Education. Miss Kayla Jacobs, Advanced Diploma in Education.
With distinction.
Mr. Dilaray Jordan, Advanced Diploma in Education. Miss Samantha Hannah Ken, Advanced Diploma in Education. Miss Savannah Karen Karam, Advanced Diploma in Education. Miss Shimon Killian, Advanced Diploma in Education.
With distinction.
Miss Raquel Bianca Lavos, Advanced Diploma in Education. Miss Laurentia Dibakiso Limawana, Advanced Diploma in Education. Miss Minette Lindekwi, Advanced Diploma in Education. Miss Sherla Jessica Lins, Advanced Diploma in Education. Miss Rifilwe Susan Mabena, Advanced Diploma in Education. Miss Rebecca Magudulela, Advanced Diploma in Education. Miss Aisha Bibi Mahomet, Advanced Diploma in Education. Miss Zahira Mangera, Advanced Diploma in Education. Miss Philippa Alexandra Gabriel Matthews, Advanced Diploma in Education. Mrs. Cindy Swambube, Advanced Diploma in Education. Miss Jacqueline Santa Mendes, Advanced Diploma in Education. Mrs. Brenda Meshia Metla, Advanced Diploma in Education. Mrs. Nomvelo Mnyani, Advanced Diploma in Education. Miss Faith Mukhosi, Advanced Diploma in Education. Mrs. Matapelo Esther Mukine, Advanced Diploma in Education. Mrs. Mason Togozo Mukwena, Advanced Diploma in Education. Miss Maina Ntepiseng Mutaung, Advanced Diploma in Education. Mr. Pumlani Mdeni Mwelase, Advanced Diploma in Education. Miss Kirsten Mayberg, Advanced Diploma in Education. Mrs. Uveshka Chilakavati Naika, Advanced Diploma in Education. Mrs. Lydia Maipepi Njala, Advanced Diploma in Education. Miss Thandiwe Fiona Ndukwani, Advanced Diploma in Education. Mrs. Nolusizo Nkukwana, Advanced Diploma in Education. Miss Kanyisile Maureen Nuba, Advanced Diploma in Education. Miss Martha Maria Petronella Olkes, Advanced Diploma in Education. Mr. Enver Oosthuizen, Advanced Diploma in Education. Mrs. Chiloshni Pillay, Advanced Diploma in Education. Mrs. Robin Presbury, Advanced Diploma in Education. Miss Kate Rosemary Purser, Advanced Diploma in Education. Miss Princess Xoswa Koboshiane, Advanced Diploma in Education. Miss Adele Rabolin, Advanced Diploma in Education. Mrs. Madishaka Lizia Rahantu, Advanced Diploma in Education. Mrs. Lirato Rehoto, Advanced Diploma in Education. Mrs. Chantel Rona Skank, Advanced Diploma in Education.
With distinction.
Miss Ellen Madamela Sipuma, Advanced Diploma in Education. Miss Dieketeng Olga Letitia Sitsubi, Advanced Diploma in Education. Miss Jessica Jean Sinclair, Advanced Diploma in Education. Mrs. Catherine Mary Sly, Advanced Diploma in Education. Mrs. Vedi Regina Sneyman, Advanced Diploma in Education. Mrs. Desiree Steenkamp, Advanced Diploma in Education. Miss Joanne Apiwe Steleki, Advanced Diploma in Education. Mrs. Andoret Stein Nell, Advanced Diploma in Education. Mrs. Crystal Swanepoel, Advanced Diploma in Education.
With distinction.
Miss Fisoguhle Penis Twala, Advanced Diploma in Education. Miss Xoliswa Chimese, Advanced Diploma in Education. Mrs. Heather Mendy van der Aardweg, Advanced Diploma in Education. Mrs. Wendy N. van den Jefer, Advanced Diploma in Education. Mrs. Candice van Rooyen, Advanced Diploma in Education. Mrs. Natasha Willett, Advanced Diploma in Education.
Mr. Bernard Seko, Advanced Diploma in Education.
Miss Lina Loisas Chaza, Advanced Diploma in Education. Mr. Difa Steny Chilwane, Advanced Diploma in Education. Mr. Reginald Manasseh Dlamini, Advanced Diploma in Education. Ms. Duduzile Diana Dlamini, Advanced Diploma in Education. Mr. Amos Petros Kumalo, Advanced Diploma in Education. Miss Leti Leatile Leshaba, Advanced Diploma in Education. Mrs. Kabisile Doreen Letang, Advanced Diploma in Education. Mrs. Nelly Moss Mahlalela, Advanced Diploma in Education. Miss Aina Susan Malikani, Advanced Diploma in Education. Mr. Johan Simanga Maluka, Advanced Diploma in Education. Miss Lynette Maseko, Advanced Diploma in Education. Miss Gugu Patience Masilela, Advanced Diploma in Education. Mr. Petros Musa Matebula, Advanced Diploma in Education. Mr. Pleasant Matthew, Advanced Diploma in Education.
With distinction.
Mr. Sidney Russell Mnisi, Advanced Diploma in Education. Ms. Thandazile Lydia Nkambule, Advanced Diploma in Education. Mrs. Elsie Spiwe Nkosi, Advanced Diploma in Education. Mr. Sizwe Patrick Sambo, Advanced Diploma in Education. Ms. Nomsa Grace Sambo, Advanced Diploma in Education. Mr. Tibazo Make, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, School Phase Teaching. Ms. Sesi Shamalani Make, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, School Phase Teaching. Ms. Khoputso Promise Make, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, School Phase Teaching. Mr. Christopher Benjamin Martins, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, School Phase Teaching. Ms. Vanessa Koketso Mabaso, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, School Phase Teaching. Mr. Grini Given Mabela, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, School Phase Teaching. Ms. Matapelo Petunia Mabena, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, School Phase Teaching. Ms. Gugu Clementine Mabona, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, School Phase Teaching. Ms. Innocentia Tenjiwe Mabuza, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, School Phase Teaching. Ms. Palisa Lungile Mabuza, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, School Phase Teaching. Ms. Masarame Machaba, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, School Phase Teaching. Ms. Tepiso Mashaba, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, School Phase Teaching. Ms. Nomcebo Mabuyane Machite, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, School Phase Teaching. Ms. Harriet Makonzo, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, School Phase Teaching. Ms. Rebecca Taylor Madalane, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, School Phase Teaching. Ms. Ruth Madlazi, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, School Phase Teaching. Ms. Nelisiwe Octavia Madondo, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, School Phase Teaching. Ms. Pindile Maduguta, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, School Phase Teaching. Ms. Shelley Machaka Mafukwane, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, School Phase Teaching. Ms. Sipale Debello Mafulu, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, School Phase Teaching. Ms. Kuzo Mahasha, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, School Phase Teaching. Mr. Zenzele Brian Mahaye, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, School Phase Teaching. Mr. Mpumelelo Innocent Mahlangu, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, School Phase Teaching. Ms. Sihle Lindela Sandisile Mahlangu, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, School Phase Teaching. Ms. Kitumeti Vena Mahlaula, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, School Phase Teaching. Mr. Raymond Mahole, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, School Phase Teaching. Ms. Buchari Humani, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, School Phase Teaching. Ms. Gwanele Makama, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, School Phase Teaching. Ms. Mamatle Julia Makapane, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, School Phase Teaching. Ms. Itumeleng Nancy Makena, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, Teaching. Miss Mukotudi Christina Mahwana, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, Teaching. Miss Banele Makanya, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, Teaching. Miss Riboni Charity Makubela, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, Teaching. Miss Dineo Grace Makoro, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, Teaching. Miss Matsimela Twarelo Makua, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, Teaching. Miss Salmita Malepe, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, Teaching. Mr. Hopewell Martin Malepe, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, Teaching. Miss Notando Felicia Malindisa, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, Teaching. Mr. Tshegofatso Bradley Malope, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, Teaching. Miss Francina Sibongile Maluleka, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, Teaching. Mr. Neville Maluleke, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, Teaching. Mr. Tebuho Gift Maluleke, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, Teaching. Mr. Tibani Maxwell Maluleke, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, Teaching. Miss Noetu Brilliantine Mamba, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, Teaching. Miss Wendy Mambana, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, Teaching. Miss Tumelo Malebu Mashinyane Mampane, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, Teaching. Miss Muriel Mapange, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, Teaching. Miss Mukhadi Justin Marakalala, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, Teaching. Mr. Khomujo Machweni Maribana, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, Teaching. Mr. Kabelo Tato Marukane, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, Teaching. Mr. Teboho Maromu, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, Teaching. Ms. Kanyisa Masego, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, Teaching. Ms. Mamutlahare Valentine Masemula, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, Teaching. Ms. Khomuzo Unita Masinamela, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, Teaching. Ms. Umpemeti Masinya, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, Teaching. Ms. Rhupeji Litau Mashilo, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, Teaching. Ms. Victory Mashishi, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, Teaching. Mr. Kelimpilo Fortune Masugu, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, Teaching. Ms. Nolutando Lindoguhle Masugu, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, Teaching. Ms. Martha Zainel Matenji, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, Teaching. Ms. Kamukhelo Mate, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, Teaching. Mr. Siabonga Matebula, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, Teaching. Ms. Nompumelelo Matombeni, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, Teaching. Miss Mapula Promise Mate, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, Teaching. Miss Mapula Nompumelelo Mutsidisi Matsapula, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, Teaching. Mr. Muhammad Zain Matthews, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, Teaching. Miss Ayanda Zamaswazi Mavuso, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education, Teaching. Miss Makosazana Mavuso, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, Teaching. Mr. Blessing Nsizwa Zonke Mawela, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, Teaching. Mr. Lindani Mfundo Mazibugo, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, Teaching. Mr. Sizwe Mholi Mbata, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, Teaching. Miss Nogwanda Patience Mbata, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, Teaching. Miss Nosimilo Mbata, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, Teaching. Miss Winile Valencia Mbazima, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, Teaching. Miss Tando Valencia Mbogani, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, Teaching. Miss Banele Mbongwa, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, Teaching. Miss Tembani Mboweni, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, Teaching. Miss Lishe Tando Mbuli, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, Teaching. Miss Itumeleng Poshia Mcindi, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, Teaching. Miss Tandega Innocentia Mdaki, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, Teaching. Miss Pilile Sophie Mdungwane, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, Teaching. Miss Hloniphile Mihlapi, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, Teaching. Miss Musa Mfagadolo, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, Teaching. Mr. Christopher Tembeli Shemgcina, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, Teaching. Miss Tutula Jennifer Mshaba, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, Teaching. Miss Martha Meta Mshanga, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, Teaching. Miss Nokolo Pearl Mhlongo, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, Teaching. Miss Nonsikelelo Minani, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, Teaching. Miss Mihloti Mkabele, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, Teaching. Mr. Siabonga Cyril Mkalipi, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, Teaching. Miss Samgelisiwe Mkize, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, Teaching. Miss Sinigeziwe Sizani Mkize, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, Teaching. Miss Cindy Goodness Mkonza, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, Teaching. Miss Tulisile Angel Mlauzi, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, Teaching. Miss Aniki Kana Kolobiana Manamela, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, Teaching. Mr. Takalani Austin Mbi, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, Teaching. Mr. Shelton Mncube, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, Teaching. Ms. Busisiwe Sandra Mncube, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, Teaching. Ms. Sympathy Luyanda Mncube, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, Teaching. Ms. Thandeka Bongeka Mdletshe, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, Teaching. Mr. Mkhuleko Mngomezulu, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, Teaching. Ms. Mahupe Talita Ntabiseng Mnguni, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, Teaching. Ms. Nonjabulo Tracy Mnguni, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, Teaching. Ms. Fezega Sherin Mnisi, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, Teaching. Mr. Kenny Mnisi, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, Teaching. Mr. Bongani Brilliant Mnisi, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, Teaching. Ms. Zama Spelele Mnisi, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, Teaching. Mr. Khutso Mnisi, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, Teaching. Ms. Esetu Mnyamana, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, Teaching. Ms. Keurapetsi Dainam Walushi, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, Teaching. Ms. Masikhodi Daisy Mwate, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, Teaching. Mr. Pule Morgan Mfukeng, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, Teaching. Mr. Tapelo Jeffrey Mukhajane, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, Teaching. Ms. Makhwale Poshia Mukhubana, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, Teaching. Ms. Gift Piladi Muhlala, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, Teaching. Mr. Karabo Mukhotu, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, Teaching. Ms. Dela Makwina Mukwena, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, Teaching. Ms. Mudiei Anna Mukwena, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, Teaching. Ms. Ntabiseng Mukwena, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, Teaching. Ms. Agrinet Moriene Mukwena, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, Teaching. Mr. Tembinkosi Mukuku, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, Teaching. Ms. Tato Anna Mukonyani, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, Teaching. Ms. Tumelo Desri Mulala, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, Teaching. Ms. Khomujo Mulapi, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, Teaching. Mr. Tapelo Muloto, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, Teaching. Mr. Anwa Mulwele, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, Teaching. Ms. Mamotabo Aina Munareng, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, Teaching. Ms. Lucia Munyela, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, Teaching. Mr. Uze Mula, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, Teaching. Mr. Brandon Jarrod Munsemi, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, Teaching. Mr. Mohammed Musala, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, Teaching. Mr. Lucky Mushoko, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, Teaching. Ms. Matsidiso Jessica Musia, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, Teaching. Mr. Lindoguhle Kamukhelo Musinki, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, Teaching. Mr. Khutazo Mutale, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, Teaching. Ms. Mapao Mutlozi, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, Teaching. Ms. Lisigo Mota, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, Teaching. Ms. Rabetsu Ntibaleng Mutswane, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, Teaching. Ms. Mapula Precious Mutsoko, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, Teaching. Mr. Moyahabo Edward Mutsoko, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, Teaching. Ms. Millicent Mpapudi, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, Teaching. Ms. Zanele Jessica Mpatwe, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, Teaching. Ms. Dineo Mtlalipule Khomotso Mputi, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, Teaching. Ms. Mbalenhle Mtetwa, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, Teaching. Mr. Vuga Mtembu, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, Teaching. Ms. Ketabahle Spelele Mtetwa, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, Teaching. Ms. Nondumiso Happiness Mtimkulu, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, Teaching. Ms. Atini Mtimba, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, Teaching. Mr. Kolani Mtolo, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, Teaching. Mr. Sakile Mjali, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, Teaching. Ms. Lindiwe Mtweni, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, Teaching. Ms. Ntsako Eunice Mutise, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, Teaching. Mr. Sibusiso Mzwana, Bachelor of Education in Senior Phase and Further Education and Training, Teaching. Mr. Menzi Dladla, Bachelor of Education, Honours in Language, Literacies and Literature. Ms. Zanele Lina Mufugeng, Bachelor of Education, Honours in Language, Literacies and Literature. Mr. Selby Menzi Nkalanga, Bachelor of Education, Honours in Language, Literacies and Literature. Ms. Bonisiwe Ntombela, Bachelor of Education, Honours in Language, Literacies and Literature. Ms. Kiurapetsi Queen Sekhonote, Bachelor of Education, Honours in Language, Literacies and Literature. Ms. Jessica Naomi Stevens, Bachelor of Education, Honours in Language, Literacies and Literature. Miss Nabella Abed, Postgraduate Certificate in Education.
With distinction.
Mr. Edward Baloyi, Postgraduate Certificate in Education. Miss Shalala Millicent Baloyi, Postgraduate Certificate in Education. Miss Tinyiko Patricia Baloyi, Postgraduate Certificate in Education. Miss Monique Vuelwa Belu, Postgraduate Certificate in Education. Mr. Zunaid Biekas, Postgraduate Certificate in Education. Miss Nenhlanhla Buthelezi, Postgraduate Certificate in Education. Mrs. Kenzani Vivian Chauke, Postgraduate Certificate in Education. Miss Geraldine Dennis Kane, Postgraduate Certificate in Education. Miss Mamutle Johanna Dekhale, Postgraduate Certificate in Education.
With distinction.
Mr. Samgeliso Gift Dlamini, Postgraduate Certificate in Education. Miss Chiquita Foster, Postgraduate Certificate in Education. Mr. Ribaone Elliot Khabana Khosi, Postgraduate Certificate in Education.
With distinction.
Miss Tiffany Lynn Ganten Bain, Postgraduate Certificate in Education.
With distinction.
Miss Palisa Honoko, Postgraduate Certificate in Education. Miss Michelle Eugenie Horn, Postgraduate Certificate in Education.
With distinction.
Miss Asanda Jauza, Postgraduate Certificate in Education. Miss Marcia Mokhobe Khapula, Postgraduate Certificate in Education. Mr. Mahlatsi Japheth Khwete, Postgraduate Certificate in Education. Mr. Mboni Khosa, Postgraduate Certificate in Education. Mr. John Chico Khoza, Postgraduate Certificate in Education.
With distinction.
Mr. Lihlohonolo Isaac Kral, Postgraduate Certificate in Education. Miss Ntabeleng Bridget Gubjana, Postgraduate Certificate in Education. Miss Azufaneli Dolens Madziba Ndila, Postgraduate Certificate in Education. Miss Yabanati Magadla, Postgraduate Certificate in Education. Mrs. Rudzani Makachaba, Postgraduate Certificate in Education. Miss Novuyo Makobongo, Postgraduate Certificate in Education. Miss Martha Mahai, Postgraduate Certificate in Education. Miss Charlene Boniswa Mailula, Postgraduate Certificate in Education. Mr. Alfred Lishabani Makofane, Postgraduate Certificate in Education. Mr. Dennis Malapane, Postgraduate Certificate in Education. Miss Martha Malaji, Postgraduate Certificate in Education. Miss Malitlatle Keshia Malidimu, Postgraduate Certificate in Education. Mr. Andrew Malokhadihlare, Postgraduate Certificate in Education. Miss Immaculate Maluleka, Postgraduate Certificate in Education. Mrs. Mapifo Mutlepi Maluleke, Postgraduate Certificate in Education. Mr. Johannes Ramatiti Manoko, Postgraduate Certificate in Education. Miss Mabaki Grace Manyama, Postgraduate Certificate in Education. Mr. Nwako Silas Mashapu, Postgraduate Certificate in Education. Miss Lucy Kosi Masilela, Postgraduate Certificate in Education. Mr. Mkondisi Felix Masina, Postgraduate Certificate in Education.
With distinction.
Miss Eliana Lisedi Masola, Postgraduate Certificate in Education.
With distinction.
Miss Madute Tebogo Mayane, Postgraduate Certificate in Education. Miss Busisiwe Happy Mazibugo, Postgraduate Certificate in Education. Miss Babalwa Mbelani, Postgraduate Certificate in Education. Mr. Sizwe Donald Mbonani, Postgraduate Certificate in Education. Miss Melin Ramukwena Mingwai, Postgraduate Certificate in Education. Mr. Mpho Mirehi, Postgraduate Certificate in Education. Miss Zola Numpumelelo Zoleka Mfono, Postgraduate Certificate in Education. Mr. Sabata Mgoboli, Postgraduate Certificate in Education. Miss Batabile Lorraine Mhlanga, Postgraduate Certificate in Education. Mr. Alibi Ntsako Mkari, Postgraduate Certificate in Education. Miss Yolisa Rehanzu Mkachwa, Postgraduate Certificate in Education. Miss Nonkululeko Mnguni, Postgraduate Certificate in Education. Mr. Nkululeko Africa Mnguni, Postgraduate Certificate in Education. Miss Nompumelelo Lydia Mweketi, Postgraduate Certificate in Education. Miss Lerato Akadia Mufukeng, Postgraduate Certificate in Education. Mr. Tukisi James Mukhano, Postgraduate Certificate in Education. Miss Sarah Mohale, Postgraduate Certificate in Education. Mrs. Asfia Mohammed, Postgraduate Certificate in Education. Miss Tibatso Mulebogeng Moholola, Postgraduate Certificate in Education. Miss Masutane Mukhwati, Postgraduate Certificate in Education. Mr. Tato Ike Mukwena, Postgraduate Certificate in Education. Miss Lydia Mukwena, Postgraduate Certificate in Education. Miss Masekhwari Mukwena, Postgraduate Certificate in Education. Miss Takhalang Ramadimeja Molaba, Postgraduate Certificate in Education. Miss Ayanda Muloi, Postgraduate Certificate in Education. Miss Masia Eunice Munyetabeng, Postgraduate Certificate in Education. Miss Manghoke Namani Murema, Postgraduate Certificate in Education. Mr. Khomutso Sello Moropana, Postgraduate Certificate in Education. Mr. Silaelo Theophilus Musiamo, Postgraduate Certificate in Education. Miss Sekhena Martha Mutapo, Postgraduate Certificate in Education.
With distinction.
Miss Nongeba Mutupi, Postgraduate Certificate in Education. Miss Mankhani Mabusha Rosina Mutatlana, Postgraduate Certificate in Education. Miss Katlego Mamuchabo Anampashlele, Postgraduate Certificate in Education. Miss Mamputsa Mpashlele, Postgraduate Certificate in Education. Miss Nosipho Lungile Msibi, Postgraduate Certificate in Education. Miss Nomhlekabo Notando Petunia Msiza, Postgraduate Certificate in Education. Miss Tulufelo Zipora Namoto, Postgraduate Certificate in Education. Mr. Mulalo Nechamuchezi, Postgraduate Certificate in Education. Mr. Mpendulo Mnoto Ngampalala, Postgraduate Certificate in Education. Miss Ntogozo Gratitude Ngwenya, Postgraduate Certificate in Education.
With distinction.
Miss Sesetu Ngwigisa, Postgraduate Certificate in Education. Miss Sky Jinei Nikerk, Postgraduate Certificate in Education.
with distinction.
Miss Lindelwa Fezeka Nkomentaba, Postgraduate Certificate in Education. Mr. Lusanda Nokuka, Postgraduate Certificate in Education. Miss Nosipho Nomfundo Nyide, Postgraduate Certificate in Education. Miss Obiageli Nelly Ogabu, Postgraduate Certificate in Education. Miss Casey N. Ogilvy, Postgraduate Certificate in Education.
With distinction.
Mr. Ephraim Pandelani, Postgraduate Certificate in Education. Miss Lizel Pence, Postgraduate Certificate in Education.
With distinction.
Mr. Atina Sean Pei, Postgraduate Certificate in Education. Mr. Marupin Confidence Pitela, Postgraduate Certificate in Education. Mr. Sabela Alfred Ramafuko, Postgraduate Certificate in Education. Mr. Pembelani Rasigiti, Postgraduate Certificate in Education. Ms. Mashudu Heritage Sadiki, Postgraduate Certificate in Education. Ms. Winnie Chweni Siapela, Postgraduate Certificate in Education. Mr. Mabilo Daniel Suhwana, Postgraduate Certificate in Education. Ms. Nkateko Goodness Sinwana, Postgraduate Certificate in Education. Mrs. Kamuhelo Sitwane, Postgraduate Certificate in Education.
With distinction.
Ms. Nogwazi Remembrance Skosana, Postgraduate Certificate in Education. Mr. Sizwe Muzi Jan Skosana, Postgraduate Certificate in Education. Ms. Une Annelise Smith, Postgraduate Certificate in Education.
With distinction.
Ms. Nelisiwe Princess Tanjegwayo, Postgraduate Certificate in Education. Mr. Mfanelo Shabalala, Postgraduate Certificate in Education. Miss Eugenia Chibula, Postgraduate Certificate in Education. Miss Karmi van Dijk, Postgraduate Certificate in Education.
With distinction.
Miss Shana Lee van Sale, Postgraduate Certificate in Education.
With distinction.
Miss Tyler Fesser, Postgraduate Certificate in Education.
With distinction.
Mr. Sibusiso Lutando Voi, Postgraduate Certificate in Education. Mr. Mpendulo Tandugwazi Zulu, Postgraduate Certificate in Education.
The devastation brought by COVID-19 pandemic has left the global community in disarray. However, it is also a period that has shown our collective courage and unity as a country. Graduates, we are proud of your achievements. Yours is a truly outstanding and landmark achievement for you personally, your family and friends, your community, and for all of us here at UJ, South Africa, and beyond. As we all celebrate, our graduates stand as reminders that accomplishment, triumph, and celebration are the outcomes of dedication and perseverance, traits which our nation and our world should draw great inspiration from. Our hope is that the time and sacrifices that you, your families, the university, and the state have invested in your education will now see you continue to grow intellectually, professionally, and as committed and respected citizens of our country and the wider global community. Let us also express words of gratitude to parents, families, spouses, partners, and friends for their support. motivation, and love during your studies. A graduation is an important achievement, and it also marks a new beginning. As our great leader Nelson Mandela wrote in his autobiography, Long Walk to Freedom, he said, "I have walked that long road to freedom. I have tried not to falter. I have made missteps along the way, but I have discovered the secret that after climbing a great hill, one only finds that there are many more hills to climb. I have taken a moment here to rest, to steal a view of the glorious vista that surrounds me, to look back on the distance I have come. But I can only rest for a moment, for with freedom come responsibilities, and I dare not linger, for my long walk is not yet ended." Having reached the summit of the mountain, one realizes, as Nelson Mandela reminds us, that there are even more mountains and valleys ahead. You graduated today at a time when the world faces considerable challenges. However, we are confident that our UJ graduates will contribute significantly towards a sustainable, better world. We believe our graduates have acquired the ingredients to become leaders that display exemplary ethical leadership that sets the tone for high standards. Remain critical thinkers, and armed with your UJ qualification, be change agents for a better world. To our graduates, Chancellor's Medal and Faculty Prize winners, our masters and doctoral candidates, and their supervisors, congratulations and well done with your exceptional academic performance. Special congratulations are extended to our distinguished honorary doctorate recipients for this year. UJ is truly proud of and privileged to have this association with you. I thank you. Re a leboga, baya danki, siyabonga.
The University of Johannesburg, the future reimagined.